of all the teams remaining in the college football playoff, there's not a single team playing better than the Ohio State Buckeyes. We take a look at how they're going to continue that run by beating the Texas Longhorns, what they need to do, the keys to the game, and the players that are going to make that happen. It should be pretty obvious at this point, but we're still going to talk about it. This is an Ohio State team that is playing lights out, and they have been doing a great job of dominating teams early. And I don't want to say coasting, but they are definitely controlling the game throughout. They did it in the first round against Tennessee, and they absolutely took it to Oregon in the Rose Bowl. And this is going to be a fun team to watch. This is a team that is very capable of winning a national championship, obviously, and this is what we needed to see from Ryan Day's team. This is something that we needed to see from this group, especially after the Michigan loss. I'm not going to say that the loss is something they needed, because they already had the loss to Oregon, but they definitely are using that to their advantage. They are finding ways to win at the point of attack. They're finding ways to win downfield. This is a team that is playing really well, and it's also a reason why they were favored against Oregon, and now they're favored by 6 points against the Texas Longhorns. Now, it should be super surprising to see that, but this is a Texas team that at one point was in the running for that number 1 seed. So this is a team that's playing really well, and a team that is very capable of winning this entire thing. With the entire tournament, they're capable of winning a national championship, and their first 2 games in the playoff are examples of that. And it's been really fun to watch. If you're an Ohio State fan, you have to feel really good about where you're sitting right now. You have to feel good about the position that Will Howard's put you in, that Ryan Day's put you in. Chip Kelly has done a good job. Jim Knowles is kind of flying under the radar. And that kind of leads us to the keys to the game. Chip Kelly obviously is doing a great job. He is currently, as they say, in his bag with his play calling, doing a great job of getting his players in position to make big plays. Jeremiah Smith is one of them. And that's one of the biggest keys, is that they're going to keep getting Jeremiah Smith the ball. It's going to be a fun matchup going against Jada Barron in that Texas secondary. Jeremiah Smith is going to provide plenty of difficulties for that secondary. He is an absolute terror for anybody that faces him. Just ask Tennessee and Oregon, having a phenomenal playoff so far. 13 catches for 290 yards and 4 touchdowns in those 2 games on the biggest stage. This kid is special. He's going to do special things, and Texas maybe at times is just going to have to hang on for dear life. The other thing is live in the backfield. Against Oregon, they did exactly that. If Ohio State does what they did against Oregon, nobody's going to come close to touching them. They're going to be that dominant. 13 tackles for loss, 8 sacks. Absolutely dominant. That's a group that is playing really well. Jack Sawyer is playing really well. JT Tuimoloau is playing to the level that we expected him to play. I think 2 guys that I talked about in the last video for Ohio State, Tyleik Williams and Ty Hamilton, those are 2 guys that are flying under the radar, but they played a huge role against the Oregon Ducks. They were absolutely disruptive, and living in the backfield against the Texas Longhorns is going to be a big key. Texas has struggled running the football, so that is something that Ohio State shouldn't have too much of a problem taking away if they play really well, play to the level that they're capable of. And then at that point, it's just getting to the quarterback. And Jim Knowles has done a really good job of switching up the looks. They didn't have to bring a ton of pressure against the Oregon Ducks. That's how good that front 4 was playing. They were playing really well, and they were finding ways to be absolutely disruptive, and they need to do that again. And it's going to be difficult against a really good Texas offensive line. That is a group that is going to feature a number of NFL draft picks, but that Ohio State defense is very capable of creating pressure, and they have talent too. Those guys are going to play at the next level as well. It's not like they're a bunch of nobodies. They are very capable of playing to that level. Also, keep pounding the rock. We saw what Arizona State did against Texas. Cam Sketabo struggled early against this Texas defense, but they just kept going. They were physical, and I mean, how many Arizona State offensive linemen can you name? And the fact that Ohio State should have more talented players on the offensive line than Arizona State says a lot about what you're capable of doing running the football. You also talk about running backs. Now, you could have the argument of if you'd rather have Sketabo, Travion Henderson, Quinshon Judkins. We're not here to discuss that. But if Cam Sketabo can do what he did, imagine what Henderson and Judkins do if they play to the level that they're capable of. This is a group that, that tandem, 179 yards and 2 touchdowns against Oregon. That's a tandem that is going to be a major factor in this game. They're going to play a big role in Ohio State's win if they find a way to win this game, and they're going to play a big role in any game that they play going forward. And if they're going to make it to the national championship, running the football is going to have to be a big key. And going against that Texas front is obviously going to be difficult. They have a number of talented players, but we've seen Ohio State's offensive line all year step up to the challenge. It doesn't matter what they've had to do. If they've had to move guys from guard to tackle, they've lost 2 starting tackles. This is a group that's resilient and it has not wavered in any face of adversity. They have found ways to win football games, and a lot of it obviously is going to go to Will Howard and Jeremiah Smith, but a lot of love has to go to the offensive line. This offensive line has played a huge role. Donovan Jackson has been phenomenal. I mean, they're already down 2 tackles, they're starting center, and this group has not wavered. They've essentially taken that challenge personally, and they've taken it out on any team that they face. This is going to be the same thing that they try to do against Texas. Now, with the Texas Longhorns, when you look at who you have to face if you're Ohio State, Matthew Golden is the big name in the passing attack. Quinn Ewers obviously is the guy that everyone's going to focus on, but Matthew Golden has done a really good job of becoming a deep threat. He has essentially changed his role from slot guy, possession guy, to their deep threat. Because Isaiah Bond's been hurt, he has been that guy, and he's played really well. He has made some incredible catches, especially against Arizona State, and that is something that could test this Ohio State team, assuming that Quinn Ewers has time to throw. Ewers had a pretty good game, 322 yards and 3 touchdowns. This Texas offense, if they get going, they can get off to a hot start. So Ohio State has to be ready for that. They have to find a way to create pressure that's going to slow down this offense. You know, the rushing attack, like we talked about before, Quintrevion Reisner, 2.5 yards per carry. Jaden Blue, the speedster, pretty much non-existent, barely touched the football against Arizona State. That is what Ohio State is trying to replicate. They're trying to figure out ways to slow this offense down. If they can make them one-dimensional, that puts things in Ohio State's favor. That gives them the advantage, and that's going to be very difficult if you're Texas to try to move the ball down the field. Defensively, this defensive line is probably going to create a lot of problems for Ohio State, and that's going to be where you focus. And honestly, if there's a group that can handle the problems that they're going to face, it's Ohio State's offensive line. They've faced problems all year. They have not struggled with anything consistently. They have found ways to compete, and it doesn't matter who's playing, what they're doing. They are finding ways to win. Now, Colin Simmons, very talented. Trey Moore had a big game. Ethan Burke's going to be a problem. Vernon Broughton, Bill Norton. You have a number of guys that are going to rotate in, and that's going to create some problems. But Ohio State is feeling like they're prepared for anything that Texas can throw their way. The guy that's going to cover Jeremiah Smith the most is probably going to be Jahdae Barron, a guy who has a future in the NFL. That's going to be an epic matchup to watch. If you're a fan of college football and you don't have a rooting interest in this game, that is definitely a matchup to watch. One of the best matchups of college football coming up in the next round of the playoff. Now, when we talk about Ohio State and what players we need to pay attention to, obviously you could talk about every single player on Ohio State. I think that they had a huge game against Oregon, and that was surprising. And it was a number of players that stepped up that were some big names, but also some guys that maybe we haven't talked about a ton. Jeremiah Smith. We could talk about Jeremiah Smith for hours and hours. That's just how good he is, and he's only a freshman. You're going to hear about that, obviously, all week. The rest of the offseason, doesn't matter what Ohio State does at this point, he is going to be the topic of conversation when you discuss the Ohio State Buckeyes, and for good reason. The running backs are doing a really good job. Bringing in Quinshon Judkins has yielded huge dividends. I'll be honest, when I saw that they got him, I wasn't too sure how it was going to work, but they have found, when we talk about Chip Kelly, when you look at what he had at Oregon, I think of, LaMichael James and Kenyon Barner. That was a great duo, and you're essentially taking that duo and their production and getting the same thing from Travion Henderson and Quinshon Judkins, but you're getting a bigger version of both of those guys, and you could make an argument more talented. And it's been an absolute joy to watch these two. Travion Henderson averaged 11.8 yards per carry against Oregon. Judkins carried the ball 17 times for 85 yards. This is a group that's really fun to watch. They've been fun to watch all year, and they're a big reason why they've had success too. Not a lot of people are talking about their success running the football, but this is a group that is having a really good year and really fun to talk about. You know, the inner circles of Ohio State, the team people that are covering Ohio State are going to talk about that, obviously. But I think maybe when you look at a national landscape, you're not talking as much about what Travion Henderson and Quinjon Judkins are doing for Ohio State, because Jeremiah Smith is kind of stealing the spotlight. Will Howard's also stealing the spotlight, and this passing attack has been really good, especially in these two games. But these are our two guys that are really good. The rushing attack is also doing its part. Another guy that we haven't really talked about a ton with Ohio State is Cody Simon. How Jim Knowles used him against Oregon is not going to be the same as how he uses him against Texas. You might spy Quinn Ewers every now and then, but they're not going to use him in that capacity. They are going to find different ways to line him up and send pressure with him. He is really fun to watch. He was really fun to watch against the Oregon Ducks, had a big game with 3 tackles for loss, 2 sacks. I'm excited to see how they use him in this game as well. JT Tuimoloau, we talked about him. He is playing to the level that he's capable of, and he's doing it at the right time. Jack Sawyer, running his mouth a lot, but playing with a ton of confidence. That makes for really exciting football. We also talked about Ty Hamilton, Tyleik Williams. Those are 2 guys, unsung heroes, that are playing a big role for Ohio State as well. There's a lot of things that Ohio State can continue doing. They're playing with a ton of confidence. Of the 4 teams that are in the playoff, they are by far the hottest team. They're playing with the most confidence, and they are the toughest team to beat, in my opinion. If they do all these things, they continue playing with that confidence, it's going to be tough for Texas to beat them, and they're going to continue on their quest to win a national championship.